Alexandra Eala from the Philippines, and has a huge win for her.
They are calling it the moment that shocked even Nadal's own academy, and if you look closely at the back of Alex Eala's visor, you'll see exactly why. Stitched into the fabric is a line in Tagalog, just 6 simple words that carry a powerful message. Once it begins to grow, nothing can stop it. Alex revealed the meaning behind those words during her press conference on Thursday, July 2, 2026, giving fans a glimpse into the mindset that has fueled her remarkable rise.
Pag lumago, hindi nahihinto. And that loosely translates to once it grows, it cannot be.
After walking off court 12 at the All England club, Alex Eala had stepped into a place no Filipina had ever reached before. The final score read 3-6, 6-2, 6-0. On the other side of the net stood Maya Joint, the young Australian who had stunned the tennis world just 2 days earlier by defeating Serena Williams. The stage was Wimbledon, and with that victory, Eala advanced to the 3rd round of a Grand Slam for the first time in her career. Even more remarkably, she became the first Filipino player, male or female, to reach that stage of a Grand Slam in the Open era. What made the achievement even more impressive was how little energy she seemed to spend getting there. Just 24 hours earlier, she had dismantled Renata Zarazua 6-1, 6-2 in only 1 hour and 18 minutes. She didn't play like someone desperately trying to survive the opening round. She played like someone carefully conserving her strength for something much bigger. Now we know exactly what she was saving it for. To appreciate the significance of this breakthrough, you have to remember where the limits once seemed to be. Before Wimbledon 2026, Alexandra Eala had played in 6 Grand Slam main draws. Only once had she made it beyond the opening round, reaching the 2nd round of the US Open the previous year. In 4 of those 6 appearances, her tournament ended immediately. At the Australian Open this January, despite arriving ranked comfortably inside the world's top 75, she was overwhelmed in the opening set 6-0 before eventually losing the match. It was another painful reminder that success on the biggest stages still remained just out of reach. Everything began changing only a few months later. For the first time in her career, she entered a Grand Slam not as an underdog, but as a seeded player. The number beside her name on the Wimbledon draw was 29. Just 1 year earlier, that same ranking had been 140. Those numbers tell a remarkable story. On the surface, they represent a jump of more than 100 places. Beneath them lies an entire year of relentless improvement. At only 21 years old, Eala had captured her first grass court title and quietly transformed herself from a promising prospect into a genuine threat that every player on tour now had to prepare for. Still, one important question continued to follow her wherever she went. Could she finally put together a deep run at a Grand Slam, not just produce one memorable upset, but sustain that level over multiple rounds against the world's best? It was a fair question. Her breakthrough victory over Iga Świątek in Miami during 2025 had captured global attention, but it came at a regular tour event rather than on tennis' biggest stage. Her Grand Slam record still suggested a player learning how to handle the unique pressure that only the majors can create. The doubts grew even louder after Melbourne earlier this season. Alicia Parks handed her a brutal 6-0 opening set before eliminating her in the first round, marking Eala's 3rd opening round Grand Slam exit. Nobody questioned her talent. Instead, the question became much quieter and much more difficult. Could she finish the job when it mattered most? That was the true challenge hanging over her career. It wasn't another player standing across the net. It wasn't a fierce rivalry or an outspoken critic. It was a simple question that had lingered in the background for nearly 2 years, patiently waiting for an answer. On Thursday, on court 12 at Wimbledon, Alex Eala finally delivered one. The answer didn't begin with a winner or a celebration. It began with something much smaller. If you looked closely before the match, you would have noticed the visor Alex Eala was wearing. Sewn into its design was the sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines, the very same flower she had worn in her hair during Wimbledon the year before. It wasn't simply a fashion choice. During her press conference, she explained that bringing pieces of her culture onto the court mattered deeply to her. They weren't decorations or symbols for the cameras. They were reminders of where she came from and the person she hoped to become. She spoke about it quietly, without trying to create a headline, but then she backed those words up with the kind of tennis that made everyone pay attention. there was another detail that deserved just as much attention. Alex Eala arrived at Wimbledon as the tournament's 29th seed. The first time in her career, she entered a Grand Slam carrying that status. She was no longer an unknown youngster hopping to surprise the field. The rankings had already recognized her progress long before the crowds did. The draw respected her, the seeding reflected it. Long before the headlines caught up, months of hard work at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Manacor had already begun transforming her into one of the players the rest of the tour had to prepare for. Her opening round performance offered the first real evidence. Renata Zarazua is an experienced competitor capable of making life difficult for anyone, but Eala never allowed the match to become complicated. She created 17 breakpoint opportunities, converted 4 of them, fired 22 winners compared to Zarazua's 11, and never surrendered her own serve. The entire contest lasted only 1 hour and 18 minutes. Those weren't the numbers of a player desperately fighting to stay alive. They were the numbers of someone in complete control, conserving both energy and confidence for the battles ahead. As she walked off the court, something else caught her attention. Large sections of the crowd were filled with Filipino fans. At one of the most exclusive sporting events in the world, thousands of miles from home, it suddenly felt as though she was playing in front of her own people. Afterward, she admitted she hadn't expected anything like it. "I was really surprised," she said. "Filipinos always find ways to surprise me in the best possible way. I never imagined I'd have something that felt like a home crowd here at Wimbledon." That atmosphere didn't appear out of nowhere. Wimbledon tickets are among the hardest to secure in all of sports, yet those fans made the journey because they believed something special was beginning to happen. Then came the challenge that changed everything. Waiting across the net was Maya Joint, the Australian who had become one of the biggest stories of the tournament after defeating Serena Williams just 2 days earlier. Ranked outside the seeds and sitting at number 87 in the world, Joint entered the match full of confidence and carrying enormous momentum. She already held a 1-0 head-to-head advantage over Eala after beating her in the Eastbourne final the previous year. There was nothing favorable about this draw. If anything, it represented the toughest possible second-round opponent for a young player still trying to prove she belonged among tennis elite. At first, it looked as though the script would follow the expected path. Joint captured the opening set 6-3, and for many watching, the familiar doubts immediately returned. Maybe this was where the run would end. Maybe the questions surrounding Eala's ability to sustain success at Grand Slams would remain unanswered. But then something shifted. Eala's returning became sharper. Her serving grew more precise. Every rally seemed to unfold on her terms. She claimed the second set 6-2, and with every passing game, the momentum swung further in her direction. Then came the deciding set, the moment that transformed an impressive victory into a defining career milestone. Against the same player who had shocked Serena Williams only 48 hours earlier, Alex Eala delivered a flawless performance. She didn't simply edge ahead, she dominated. Game after game slipped away from Joint until the scoreboard displayed one of the most emphatic scorelines in tennis. 6-0, a bagel. On the grass courts of Wimbledon, against one of the hottest players in the tournament, Eala produced the perfect closing statement. She answered every question that had followed her career for the past 2 years with 6 unforgettable games. The significance of that final set becomes even greater when you look back at where Alex Eala stood only 6 months earlier. At the Australian Open, she had watched an opponent hand her a 6-0 opening set before ending her tournament in the very first round. Now, on the lawns of Wimbledon, she was the one delivering a bagel in the deciding set of a match that sent her into tennis history. With that victory, she became the first Filipina and the first Filipino singles player in the Open era to reach the 3rd round of a Grand Slam. The scoreline that had once symbolized disappointment had now become the statement of her arrival. Take another step back, and the picture becomes even clearer. When March 2026 began, Eala was ranked number 32 in the world. Only a year earlier, she had been sitting at number 140. That kind of rise doesn't happen by accident, and it certainly isn't the result of one magical tournament. It reflects months of steady improvement, countless hours on the practice court, and a player who kept finding ways to raise her level every time expectations increased. Her run at Wimbledon wasn't an isolated success. It was the latest chapter in a remarkable stretch of tennis. Just weeks before arriving in London, she captured the Birmingham Classic, earning the first grass court title of her professional career after battling back to win an unforgettable three-set final. She then carried that confidence straight into Wimbledon, where she cruised through the opening round without losing serve before recovering from a one-set deficit against the very player who had eliminated Serena Williams. When you connect those performances together, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. This wasn't one extraordinary afternoon. It was the natural progression of a player whose game had reached another level. That also brings attention to the place where much of that transformation began, the Rafael Nadal Academy in Malaga, Spain. Eala has trained there since she was a young teenager, building her game under a system known for discipline, patience, and relentless attention to detail. Before Wimbledon even started, the Academy celebrated her journey from the Philippines to one of tennis' biggest stages, describing her story as an inspiration and wishing her success in her Wimbledon campaign. As her victories piled up, social media quickly filled with dramatic claims suggesting that Rafael Nadal himself had been left stunned by Eala's remarkable run. Those headlines spread rapidly, but the verified story tells something far more meaningful. The Academy never expressed surprise because the people who had watched her develop every single day already knew what she was capable of. They had witnessed the long training sessions, the setbacks, the steady improvement, and the determination that rarely appeared in highlight reels. That's often how great mentorship works. From the outside, success looks sudden. To the people who have been there from the beginning, it simply looks like the reward for years of preparation finally arriving on the biggest stage. Now, however, an even greater challenge awaited. Standing between Eala and the second week of Wimbledon was defending champion Iga Świątek, a multiple-time Grand Slam champion and one of the most complete players in the world. Świątek represented the kind of opponent every young player dreams of facing and every competitor respects. Their head-to-head record stood at one victory each. Eala's unforgettable win over Świątek in Miami during 2025 had announced her talent to the tennis world, but this meeting carried a completely different weight. When reporters asked Eala about the upcoming showdown, she didn't hesitate or try to lower expectations. "It's going to be tough," she admitted. "I'm going to try to make it tough for her as well. She's won Grand Slams on every surface, so I know the challenge in front of me, but I think I'm ready. I'm ready to face it head-on." There was no arrogance in those words. There was no attempt to create headlines. It was simply the confidence of a player who understood exactly how big the moment was and believed she had earned the right to compete in it. That mindset may have been just as important as any forehand or serve she had hit all week.